Africans just can't run things. Now, that's a very, very fundamental point. The Africans just can't run things. Now, that's a very, very fundamental point in the international scene. See my point?
Oh, boy, you sure see it around this place.
Well, how? Yeah, of course you do. You see them. They have a hell of a time making it.
In the year 2000, 2 African nations received foreign military financing. And if I remember, they were Nigeria and Sudan. Right, 10 million to Sudan, 250,000. 10 million to Nigeria, and 250,000 to Sudan. In 2005, 14 nations on the African continent are receiving U.S. military aid under this foreign military financing program, and the number has raised from that 10 million to about 24 million. So military aid has doubled. If we had no other reason to oppose Africom, we should oppose it just because the International Peace Operations Association is foreign, right? And the International Peace Operations Association is a lobbying group, and it's a lobbying group for the Blackwaters and the Dying Corps and the MPRIs, the Military Resources Professional Incorporated, and this trade organization very excited about Africa.
Received about 12% of its oil from Africa. Who can guess what that number is today? Any ideas? 24% of U.S. oil is now being sourced from the African continent. It is so critical for us to make the connections. It is not just Iraq, where the assumption is, why is our oil under their sand? But it's happening all around the world. And increasingly, Africa is being looked to source, to feed the U.S. addiction to oil. So Egypt remains the only country on the continent that's not going to be covered by the African continent. But the others, this is the proposal on the table, that if they're going to engage with the U.S., they must engage through this new Africa Command.
Cannot have peace in Costa Rica and have war in Colombia. You cannot have peace in Botswana and have war in Angola. You cannot have peace in any part of the world when other peoples are at war. And so we want to join with those African peoples who are opposed to the militarization of the planet Earth, and in particular, the plans of the United States to militarize Africa. Do you believe that the United States of America want to support the implementing of security policies for Africa? We are saying if you do want to do that, then consult with the African Union and speak to the African people who want peace. Of course, recently there have been meetings in the Pentagons, and they say the real reasons they want to have the African Command is they want to make sure there's no disruptions of African oil, and they want to protect African oil. You want to protect African oil from who?
We've got so much blood on American hands throughout the world. If you look at all of these crises along the West African coast, Sierra Leone, Angola, Congo, you just run one from one to the other. With warlords who capture areas with timber and diamonds. The guns come from the United States and other countries as well, but the U.S. is the leading arms supplier to these thugs in the bush in these countries who use children as war fodder. And you see these kids fighting 12, 13, 14-year-old children in rags, but with sophisticated, expensive arms. It never occurs to Americans to ask what they're not told in the news report. Where do these weapons come from? These are the weapons largely sold by American suppliers.
I would have to say that every coup d'etat that takes place in post-colonial Africa, from about 1956-57, right up to and including the first years of the 21st century. I would say all but perhaps 2 or 3, we're talking dozens here, were really truly independent of the United States.
I said assisted genocide. We can no longer go into a country and take it over with guns and bombs and tanks and planes. That would be condemned by the world. But instead, we allow the people to kill themselves. And this is why I call it assisted genocide or assisted self-genocide. It's like assisted suicide. You can't kill a person directly, but you assist them in killing themselves. We're doing this on a vast scale to entire countries and continents today.
Well, the powers that be, the system, I would want to see them take another look into the eyes of the children and basically rethink the greed and the genocide, the destruction of the children. The powers that be decide who's going to live, who's going to eat, who's going to move, who's going to jump, who's going to have, who's going to not have, who's going to be educated, who's not going to be educated, who's going to receive guns, who's not going to receive guns.
I have mixed feelings. I receive their ambassadors. They change all the time, and I've had in I love them. They're so kind and so nice, and they're children.